Hi everyone, my name is Hayley McPherson. I'm a postdoc at the University of Cambridge in the UK, and I'm going to be telling you today about my code FLRWSolver, which provides realistic cosmological initial conditions for use with the Einstein Toolkit. And this is a code I first started writing during my PhD at Monash University in Australia with my supervisors Daniel Price and Paul Lasky. So the first question you might have is, why do we need numerical relativity for cosmology? So in cosmology, we're interested in the large-scale evolution of the universe. And historically and currently, we use the Freeman-Lemaitre-Robinson-Walker, or FLRW, model in general relativity for our standard theoretical cosmological model and almost all of our cosmological data analysis as well. And so under this model, we've come to the conclusion in cosmology that around 70% of the universe, the energy density of the universe, is made up of dark energy, this mysterious negative pressure that forces the expansion of the universe to accelerate at late times. And we've also determined that the majority of matter in the universe is dark matter, so a kind of matter that we can't see that interacts only gravitationally. So these conclusions come purely under the assumption of the FLRW theoretical model. And now there are suggestions that we can explain the dark sector of the universe by including full general relativity in our theoretical modeling and analysis. In addition to these dark components, our standard cosmological model can't quite fully explain all of our data. There are some tensions that are emerging as our cosmological data gets increasingly precise. And so the most notable of those is the Hubble tension, which, put very simply, is a higher expansion rate using our cosmological observations at low redshift compared with our theoretical model prediction. So this is telling us that either there is some exotic new physics or there's something wrong with our standard cosmological model. Most modern cosmological simulations today use purely Newtonian description for gravity alongside the FLRW model. So of course there will be general relativistic corrections to this Newtonian description, and many quantifications of these use simplified models of general relativity. If we instead use numerical relativity, of course, I'm sure you're all familiar, that we get the full picture instead. And so I must stress that we weren't the first to do this. And so I'm sure many of you know Eloisa Venturvegna, who wrote Cosmo Toolkit Thorns, or CT Thorns, which is a set of thorns for the Einstein Toolkit for a pure dust cosmological evolution. And these thorns include a variety of simplified initial data as well, and analysis too. And so this provides a whole new set of evolution thorns for the Einstein Toolkit, which are built using Crank. These are the codes that demonstrated the feasibility of doing cosmology with the Einstein Toolkit for the first time. And Eloisa, alongside Marco Bruni back in 2016, showed differential expansion in a simplified model universe. And so I've pulled these plots from their paper, which you can find at this archive number here, where this is the simplified density field that they studied, and this is the corresponding expansion rate. And so it's very clear differential expansion of space-time in a full numerical relativity simulation. We're interested in similar questions, but we do things a little bit differently. So specifically, we wrote FLRWSolver, which is an initial conditions module to generate realistic initial data inspired by our observations of the early universe. And so this code works alongside the McLaughlin thorns to evolve space-time, and works with GR Hydro to evolve the FLRWSolver initial data that's provided. And so the very basic idea is that the user gives a power spectrum to describe the initial perturbations to an FLRW background model. So for example, the user will provide this function, which describes the power in matter fluctuations as a function of scale, so the wave number k. And then FLRWSolver will generate the linearly perturbed FLRW spacetime. So it will perturb the matter field, the density, the velocity, and the curvature of spacetime as well, and then passes these initial data into the Einstein Toolkit evolution modules. And so here's just an example of what this initial data looks like. This is the initial density field, where the red regions are overdense and the blue regions are underdense, and the green is the FLRW background. And so if we let these initial conditions evolve with the Einstein Toolkit thorns, we end up with something that looks like this. So this is the final density field, and we can see we've got a very complex cosmic web structure, which looks familiar, looks similar to all of our Newtonian n-body simulations. But of course, we have a fully inhomogeneous spacetime as well. So these kind of simulations are really useful for quantifying GR effects in cosmology with none of the regular simplifying assumptions that are adopted throughout modern cosmology. And so just a few lines on what we've done so far with FLRWSolver. And so the first thing we did was, of course, just validating the code and making sure it works using some simplified cosmological models, which you can find in this paper here. And then we did some work with this more realistic initial data that I showed you on this slide here to perform an analysis of average quantities and compare those to FLRW. So we're looking at the back reaction. And if you're more interested in reading about that, then check out this paper here. We also did a more in-depth analysis of the differential expansion rate in these more realistic simulations and looked at this in the context of the Hubble tension I mentioned before. So here we've got the same density field I showed you on the previous slide. On the left here, we're showing the corresponding expansion rate of space-time. So this is definitely inhomogeneous, and we had a look to see if this could potentially resolve the Hubble tension. No spoilers, you'll have to check out the paper here. And more recently, something I've done is look into the potential role of anisotropies in our low redshift cosmological observations. And it turns out that these could be quite important for our cosmological surveys that don't have a fair sampling of sky distribution objects. So please do check out this paper as well if you're interested. So the punchline is that this code is freely available. Now, this is a very small, but I assure you growing field. So there is lots and lots of exciting science to be done if you're interested in getting involved. So please do download FLRWSolver at this repository here. So it's not included as part of the Einstein Toolkit at the moment, but I have written tutorials on incorporating this code into the Einstein Toolkit and getting started with some simple simulations, which can be found in the doc folder in this repository. And of course, I'm always happy when more people get involved in these simulations. So please feel free to email me if you have any questions getting started or want some kind of motivation on directions to take these simulations. I'm more than happy to help people get up and running. So please do email me here. And just note that I am constantly working on improving and updating FLRWSolver. So do keep an eye out and make sure you keep your version up to date. And I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.